Okay. Hey, Ray,
Carl,
you go ahead.
Carl, are you driving?
No, that would be my lovely wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask why the seatbelt is over the wrong shoulder.
Seatbelt and David, for what it's worth, here's a preview of some forthcoming presentation. This is one of those cars that has that funny dashboard.
And it's self-driving. We just saw it moments
Put it
ago.
into self-driving mode if you would. Oh, you got to navigate first. A real time. Yeah. So Terry, who was driving until she gave control to the car, now the car is driving. So
But we lost your video, so we just have to take the word for it.
that's because I have no power. All right. Yeah. So she doesn't want it to do this right now, but there's a negotiation that she has with the car. It's kind of amusing to watch, but anyhow, forthcoming presentation at some point. There's some
Hey.
crazy stuff going on in here.
I do have a question, Carl. Maybe you can answer this. Okay, so let's say your wife was driving late at night, okay? And because I've been in this situation, and maybe she was driving too long. And so she's starting to get tired, okay?
Yeah.
And she switches off to the car, and she starts to fall asleep. Does it have any way to realize that and essentially beep at her or something, or take, does it return? Yeah, I mean, I get, I could see this person asleep in the car and then driving down the road, with a 90% possibility of doing the right thing. And I'm just curious, what does it? Can it sense that its driver has fallen asleep?
Well, let's pass that over if she doesn't mind, and I'll phrase it this way. So, Tara, how did it react the last time you fell asleep?
I haven't fallen asleep yet. But it does monitor, because it makes me put some pressure on the steering wheel every 5 seconds, or more than that, every couple minutes, I think.
And it complains if you don't.
And it beeps at you and makes all sorts of noises.
So if your hand slipped,
Make sure you're paying attention.
yeah. So if your hand slipped off the steering wheel, then it should
Take them off. Yeah. No hands. No hands on the curve. Yeah. Watch the curve. Can we see that?
yeah.
Yeah, and it'll start griping at me here.
It'll complain.
Well, that makes me wonder, what happens if you wear gloves? Let's say you're in the North Cold freezing area, you have gloves on. Would it know you have your hand on there?
It doesn't matter. It's feeling for pressure.
Oh,
Like you to move the wheels ever so slightly.
Ooh. Is it going to do the turn?
Maybe.
Okay. So Terry was one of the first people to get a high enough safety score to get full self-driving. So right now, I don't know how the camera view is, but you'll see that the car itself is executing the turn despite oncoming traffic. Hopefully, whoa! And Terry said, no, not in that case. Nor in this case. I don't know if you see that massive 18-wheeler coming. An 18-wheeler tow truck. But if you re-engage now, it'll pick up, right?
Yeah,
so I just want to be on a nice 2-lane separated highway going one direction.
Yeah, it does easiest there, but this latest, the full self-driving beta means not only can it do that on highways, but it can do it in these more ambiguous neighborhoods like this, right? So like, see, it's slowing down for a stop sign way too soon here. And every time they push an update, it behaves differently. So it stopped. Now you can see she's not doing anything, and it's decided to go, sort of. It's confused by this intersection a little bit, but it still has a nice...
So you see that blue there?
That blue line means she better take control or it's going to complain.
It's gonna knock me out.
It's going to say, you better take control or I'm stopping.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But now it's back in control again, so she just has her hands on the wheel.
And I just took it out
And
by ever so slightly
Yeah.
touching it.
Oh, it's going to go to the next road.
Yeah,
You said it'll stop if you're not you're on a busy highway. It'll stop in the middle of the highway.
no, it won't stop. It just
Okay, I think it could cause problems itself in that case for other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it like emulates a backseat driver.
Yeah.
Or it's worse.
It's worse, actually.
It's like the if you remember the old driver's ed where there was the dummy steering wheel and the driver's ed guy could take over at any time. I think it's kind of like that, except that you're constantly passing control back and forth, and so basically you're the driver's ed teacher, and it's the students. Please pay attention to the road. Said.
So this is a backseat driver that's utterly intense, and you paid a lot of money for that intensity to be thrown upon you. Okay, just make sure I got that right.
It's an improved. It's an improved backseat driver because she said it was worse. You can improve everything with technology.
And she gets the biggest kick out of it, but she'll also tell you that it really helps in her daily commute.
It does. It just switched to night mode.
It switched to night mode, so it's got a little dark screen UI, and it'll pull up in front of the house here. So she took it out of mode to go to our back alley. But anyhow, impromptu demo.
Cool.
Is that a gold star for my wife? No.
In the car, maybe.
You let the robot drive. Here, you got a gold star, Sarah.
Make my day.
My wife sits the first time and she gets a gold star. That's awesome. Hey,
Yeah,
well, I wasn't planning to present, but now I contributed something. My wife did. So thank you, Terry. Thank you, guys. We're going to go in the garage now, and I'll join you again in a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah, if my wife's giving backseat driving directions from the front seat, I just tell her to move back a little bit. Kind of a backseat driver.
Good look here. Carl just left us from his robot car, and he said, "I'll join you in a few minutes. Go back inside and get back online." Ain't the 21st century marvelous?
Well, my car doesn't do any of that fancy stuff, but it does have adaptive. It has adaptive. What do you call it?
Cruise control.
Cruise control, and and that also, if you start and it's really amazing. I mean, if you're going down like one of the interstates, it'll get. You know how you used to play tag with the cars in front of you. You have to take it out of cruise control, go around a car, put it back in cruise control, and keep going. Well, now what would happen is you just get behind something and you just slow down until you match speed with it. So if you're not paying attention, instead of doing the speed limit, you might be doing 10 or 15 miles below the speed limit because you're just match speed with keeping the distance in front of the car. And it's really interesting when a car swerves into your lane, thus cutting, say, the distance in half. Your car is going to slow down quite a bit until it can establish safe distances again. Is it an improvement? I don't know, but it is. I could see where if you weren't paying attention, it could save your butt occasionally. So I guess that's an improvement.
So does it have like the mirrors on the side where it'll sense speed?
Yeah, I've had that one's worked for a lot, but I kind of complain a little bit about that. Yeah, the mirrors will tell you if there's a car in your blind spot or on the side, and that has saved me from pulling into another lane a lot of times. But one of the problems is I don't think the vision in the car, because of the way it's designed, I can't turn my head and see behind me as well as I could in my old car. Okay, so I'm curious if they relax the requirement of how far you could turn your head and see behind you, because they're now counting on these little things on the side, yeah. And I would say it has reduced the number of times, because this guy tends to forget to look behind him, swerving in front of somebody. but it hasn't eliminated that from happening. I just get lots of beeps when I'm, going to do something stupid. So, anyway.
Doug, mine works similarly, but slightly different. If a car swerves in front of me, if that car is going faster than I am, even if it's very close, it doesn't respond.
If it's increasing the distance, that's a good question. I do
Yeah.
know it behaves differently.
If it
Okay.
swerves in front of me and it's going slower than I am,
You
or
slow-
the same speed that I am, then it slows down to try to increase the distance. But if it's
Yeah.
going faster, I guess it checks a little bit to see if the distance is increasing or decreasing.
Yeah.
But I've started to see a handful of things that are, as a robot builder, that probably need attention. One of them is if you're in a tight turn, in a curve, it will see the car in the lane next to you and slow you down.
Yeah.
Another one is there are odd times when what I would do as a driver would be very different. For example, the car in front of me is signaling that he's going to exit, and he also slows down as he exits, but I can clearly tell that I don't need to slow down. He'll be out of my lane long before I get to where he is. But the radar is not happy until he's totally out of the lane.
Yeah.
And so even when there's a little corner of it still stuck in the lane, it'll keep slowing the car down. And as a driver, I wouldn't do that. I would know. I would predict where I had to slow down. And there are some other oddities about the way it holds speed in heavy traffic. But I agree with you. It's a nice thing to have.
Yeah, I will agree. I will also say that it drives more conservatively than I do. And I'm a pretty conservative driver. But, otherwise, it will tend to slow down more than I would slow down. Otherwise, I'd be willing to, give up some of that safety margin in front of me to maintain a little slightly higher speed, and it won't, it'll slow down. But I think the biggest.
Now you can control how far away, right?
Yeah. But I've got it set out as far as it can go because.
Oh, see, I set it on the middle range because I found that slowed me down when things were a quarter mile up the road.
Yeah.
Also, I can accelerate, and it will accept that
Mm-hmm.
if I don't want to slow down as much.
Yeah.
I see that at some point as these things progress with these self-driving cars, you've already got an inkling of it here, that there's going to be a knob you can turn that says, I am a very conservative driver, or I want to be aggressive, and it's going to be folks like I see right now on this call that are going to figure out how to turn that from 0 to 10 and figure out how to turn it to 12.
Yeah.
I just know.
Yeah.
Harold, it's likely because of safety concerns and paranoia in the industry that self-driving cars are going to be the most cautious drivers on the road. And for the rest of us who are not in self-driving cars, it might well be annoying,
Mm-hmm.
like a little old lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dave. I think you're right.
So at the far end, it'll say Texan, drive like a Texan. That's not at all conservative.
Or I have some friends that are from the Northeast, or drive like you were in Boston. Like it's just one of those. You got those things too.
I'll never forget the time I was in Boston before they put in their new tunnel. They used to have a little 2-lane tunnel that everybody had, and it fed into like a 5-lane feeder. So think of it as a big funnel, and that was the only time I've ever seen driving by bumper touches. Otherwise, you would go forward until you hit a bumper in front of you, and then he would move. It was just like people shuffling 5 lanes into one, and they were doing it by just touching bumpers all the way in. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm in a rental car. This is going to be a mess, But that Boston driving is a little, or used to be a little weird. Now they've with their downtown project, they've made it a lot better than it used to be.
Did you ever see those signs on the Dallas North Tow Road?
Which one?
It's like a question, changing lanes, question mark. Use your blinker, like, when you say in Boston or something.
Yeah.
But it was on the Dallas North Tow Road.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Ray.
Yeah.
I think you were going to lead off. You want to go say something?
Oh, yeah. Doug, do you drive a CRV, Honda CRV, by any chance?
No.
Okay, good.
I do. It's Mazda CX-5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my wife and I have, there's like certain universal traits per car. It doesn't matter who's driving it. So CRVs, they're like the slowest vehicle on the road. It's like you're in a 65, they're doing 50. Cadillac owners, they own the road. They bought that expensive car, and they're gonna, they don't care who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, Cadillac driver. So.
I find that the most aggressive drivers are the pickup drivers.
Pickups, yeah.
Yeah, especially the
like
bigger
elevated
the bigger the pickup, the more aggressive they are. So.
And then there's those
And
with the
they're
truck
probably
nuts. You just
armed.
have to completely avoid those.
Yeah. I think part of it is they can see way further ahead than most people, so they're making decisions on stuff that from your point of view, well, that's really dumb, but when you can see twice as far, you might make a different decision. I'm just trying to be diplomatic here. I won't say how many people here have pickup trucks. So, yeah. Anyway.
I've actually got 3.
Yeah. So.
Oh. Okay, I can present.
Yeah.
Screen. It'll be quick. Here. Okay. I don't know if you can see this or not. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is milling out a circle for the bearing.
Yeah.
On the homemade milling machine. So it circles around once, drops down 1/10 of a millimeter, and does another circle. So it drops down right about there, but it kind of whites out. It's hard to see.
Yeah.
I was trying to show the little bit of movement in the z-axis. But anyway, so that
It works.
it works. It cuts metal.
Ray, probably one of the next step, if I were trying to improve that,
Yep.
Would be to go ahead and get a collet chuck.
Yeah.
And they're not that, you get what is it, an ER 25 or 32 or whatever the next one is.
32 is pretty common. Yeah.
If you get one of those, they're not that expensive, and you can get that's probably a number 2 Morris.
Oh yeah, on the drill press.
Yeah, and you can get them with a drawbar.
Oh, okay.
So that actually adds not only rigidity, a better chuck to hold it, but much more rigidity. You get a little more rigidity when it's a drawbar. You don't have to worry about it dropping out on you or anything.
Yeah.
So that would be, and like I say, you can probably make that upgrade for under $100.
I don't have a hollow, a tube on my drill press though.
You sure? Are you absolutely sure?
Yeah.
Can you go back to your film? Can you look at it? Because usually they have a, though they don't use a drawbar, they generally have a hollow.
Yeah, there's a shaft that goes.
Is it a spline shaft on that?
Yeah, it's got 2 splines on it,
okay.
and almost like keyways, 2 keyways.
Yeah. Okay.
And let me see here. Yeah, it won't show it in the video, but looking down from the top.
When you look at the pulleys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a spline shaft.
Well, you could still get it. Like I say, you could because this type of chuck is kind of problematic.
Yeah, there's, it wobbles a little bit. It's not like perfectly tight, but that's part of that. I think is if I tightened up that nut that just went off screen, it would be a little tighter on that shaft.
Yeah.
But
That's cool.
The other pictures. So this was a plate for the motor. It's got a smaller hole in it. There's some cutouts here I had to do, and that's one for the bearing. And I only have one screw in it, but there's a screw here and a screw here that press against this retaining ring, and that'll keep the bearing in this housing here. Got a couple others. So I had to do 6 of these, 4 here in the back, and this one in the front, and then 2 of the the ones that hold the motors. And the motors you can get left hand or right hand. And I've actually pulled out the shaft because this is it's not quite ½ inch. It's like, I think 40 thousandths under a ½ inch. And I was actually going to take, it's not in this picture, but I have a ½ inch keyed shaft, and I've turned one of this one down. So this is like 1/4 of an inch, and I'm press fitting that into the end of a keyed shaft to go into these wheels. And then let's see here if I can switch photos.
Is there a gear? Are you using the gear that's on the inside of the wheel?
No. Nope.
Okay. I know a lot of lawnmowers, they use a big steel gear there.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's I've got the wheels have like 3 holes drilled in the side, and I have like a 16 gauge plate that's used in, like, they use in electrical boxes. And this one doesn't have any knockouts in it. It just has 2 screw holes. Okay. And I'm going to actually weld the shaft to that and then bolt that to the motor, so there's no way it can slip.
Now, let me ask you this. Go back to the previous picture, the one you just showed. Did you say you modified that? Is that one that's unmodified?
That's unmodified.
Okay, all right, because I was saying, okay. So you were able to pull, on the modified one, you were able to pull the shaft out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it just comes out. In fact, there's where there's a worm and a worm gear. The worm gear is here, and then its mating gear is here. This is one of the plates that goes over this and screws into it.
Okay.
And I've made this plate to hold the motor up. It has a steel bushing in it, but I wanted to make sure it was held at the right height. So all these are 1-inch centers, whether it's the bearing or the motor shaft, and so it all lines up. Let's see here. Yeah, that one I've taken that that gear out and this shaft, and I've cut it off and turned it down to 1/4 of an inch, and then the spline shaft or keyed shaft is it's going to go over that. I don't know that I'm going to have to weld it. I'm just going to see if it I wanted like a press fit.
Yeah.
And then the shaft will go through this and attach to that metal plate on the outside. So it'll all be tied in together. And so that was the plan.
Ray, can you give a guess on how heavy are the wheels?
They're 100. Everything's plastic. There's no rubber on it. I'd say less than 2 pounds, somewhere between 1 pound and 2 pounds. They're not very heavy.
Thanks.
They have a lot of webbing, like here, so it's not, it's not solid plastic. But they're almost 10 inches, like 9 5/8 by like 2 1/8 across here, across the tread. So anyway, making some progress. Don't have a robot that moves yet, but getting closer.
Soon.
Mhm.
Maybe next time. So, but it accidentally.
Well, bravo anyway for, building a machine to then build a robot.
I know, yeah. I think that's what I have to think about. It's like I don't have much progress for all this work I've been doing here, and it's kind of like, okay, well, you made a machine to make the parts.
Yeah.
Well, this may be redundant, but I think this is what Doug was talking about, right?
Oh yeah, yep.
And if you look in this end is threaded. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep. Yeah.
For the draw.
Yep. Drawbar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's right. I've tried to do milling with a drill, basically just a 3-jaw chuck.
Right.
And
yeah. Not recommended.
No, you
yeah,
can't
if I
really.
get too aggressive, it
Yeah.
chatters.
Yeah.
So in other words,
Just
when you're
vibrates all
going to buy one of those milling machines, you want to verify it really has a drawbar chuck in it. It sounds like, right?
Well, I think if you were going to first of all, I probably wouldn't recommend modifying a drill press if you can, because if you can buy a new drill press, you can probably buy an inexpensive milling machine too. But if
Right.
you've got a
Yeah.
drill press, then you got whatever you got, But if you were selecting one out, you can get ones that they come with a hollow. They may not be using that feature, because in a drill press you don't really need it. But
you can find things that they call mill drills.
yeah,
Right.
Basically just a drill press, but a whole lot more rigid.
yeah,
And most of those I looked at when I bought my mill have a round column, which is unfortunate because it's real hard to return to where you were.
Mm.
Indicate the thing in, and then you can't get back there. But there are some nice ones out there that have square columns, which is really the key. On a milling machine, it gets real iffy if you have to sit there and tap, 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 tap every time you want to use the thing.
Yep.
But that's. I'm just saying, for the next, what you got now seems to be able to cut aluminum without any. That's aluminum, right? It's not
Yeah.
steel.
Aluminum.
Yeah, without any issues. But I would say that you would find better accuracy, and you would do less damage to your milling cutters and your chuck if you went ahead and got a ER. I want to say 32. I think that's it. But you have to look. Now, I think the one you're showing there is if you look at the inside, it's at the end where the milling bit is just a hole. So that one, I think you have to have that end piece comes out, and you have to different size inserts. But
But
the
that
ER
looks like a Morse 3 taper. Is that right?
probably. Yeah.
It's big.
And I want to say, but you can get them, on my milling machine, I think I'm using an ER25, okay, which is small. It's smaller because I want it's about a 1/2 inch. You can put a 1/2 inch cutter down to about till an 1/8 inch cutter, roughly. But if you buy one like sort of like one of the router cutters, a lot of times they'll have an ER16, which is even probably only goes up to a 1/4 inch, and it goes down to small, 1 millimeter. So
very small.
yeah. In fact,
primarily it's easier to use that than to use the Bridgeport, and I can do things in easel and download the G code and modify it, and to either speed it up or just to change the cutting path to compensate for, like, you kind of want, like, if you have 4 holes, you want to approach each hole the same way, and then that way the tolerances won't stack up. Like if you're doing one closest to the 0 point, and then say the second one further away but parallel to that, that's probably okay. But when you come back to do, say, a third one that's closer to the x-axis or the x-axis, then you're actually winding the lead screw in the other direction, and that's where you can get slop.
Yeah.
So whatever slop or tolerance is in that lead screw. So if you can approach all holes the same way, like going up and to the right from a 0 point, then they're all with respect to each other, they're going to be more accurately placed.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or drilled. So,
Doug, I think this is what you're talking about. I actually have more than one of these in there.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah, that way you
yeah.
different size cutters.
And I'm impressed that just cutting out your circle. I have to do that like this, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I turn a crank.
Yeah, you got a rotary table.
And I mean, it's a neat little thing, but it's all manual.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah,
So
it's kind of nice.
So I'm impressed. I'm very impressed.
It cuts out what I call the little Mexican hats, but the when it gets near the bottom of the cut, it actually distorts the aluminum a little bit. So I have to go like for a 3.175 millimeter, which is 1/8 of an inch. I have to go about 4 millimeters to get all the way through it. Because the cutter is shaving that off and making it thinner and thinner, and then instead of cutting, it actually deforms it or pushes it down because it's so thin at that point.
Is that a ball nose cutter? Is that just a flat end mill?
No, it's a bottom, flat bottom end mill, but the metal is getting so thin, instead of cutting it, it pushes it down and into the hole. So it doesn't, like I said, you got to go, and it's that much extra time. It's got to go, in my case, 8 more times around before it finally gets deep enough that it cuts that off completely, even with the distortion in the what I call the Mexican hat, the little circle with the big brim on it.
Yeah.
And does that leave a pretty clean edge?
It's not too bad. I actually had clean them up a little bit on the I have a 4-jaw chuck for the one lathe. Well, actually, I have 2 for each, one for each lathe, but it's the bigger one, and I can go in and true it up, because that's when the cutter goes down, it actually shifts just a little bit, and I could probably get rid of that if I did, but I'm only going down like 0.15 millimeters, so it's it's a very small cut depth, but it does make it so the hole is not perfectly round. So I clean it up afterwards. It's a little undersized, and then
Okay, if you have to clean it up with a 4-jaw chuck, that begs the question: why didn't you just make it on the 4-jaw chuck?
I probably could have. And the biggest drill that I have, let's see, that one. Well, that's like 1 3/8 hole, so I can start out with a pretty big hole, and then
Use a
Boring.
basically just bore it out with boring tools.
They are so boring.
What's that?
They're so boring.
Yeah,
Just-
that's right. A boring tool.
Wise.
Especially when you hit your boring bar into your chuck tooth, one of
Or
the-
your
one of
'cause
the-
that thing is like that 2-inch plate is revolving around, and it's like
Nobody
always
wins.
a little. What?
Nobody wins.
Yeah. It's kind of like, don't fly off the lathe, please.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Cool. So
Anyway, yeah, so it works for small things and soft metals, and
So
I
you're
actually
telling me
get the
3D
home.
print is better than it sounds like versus the aluminum.
well, no, I think it's
Well, you get hard with aluminum, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, aluminum's going to be, well, Yeah, there's probably some plastics that I could have used that would have been thick enough that I could make thick enough
Uh-huh.
to be strong enough, but and I just wanted to do it in aluminum, so I bought a 4-foot piece of 2x2 aluminum at Lowe's, and cut it into 2-inch strips, and then milled both faces and stuff. So
Well, I think it's cool that you're actually cutting to pieces. You know what I mean? That's I have my little mill doesn't get much use. I mean, it's not that it couldn't get much use. It's just that I just don't use it as often as I should be. So I'm real impressed, Ray, with you being actually
Oh.
using your tool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your CNC
Carl, no smirking.
is that a Shoreline? Doug, your CNC
Yeah,
mill,
mine's a Shoreline.
Shoreline?
Yep.
Yeah,
Did
and
CNC part come from them, or did you add that?
well, what happened was this happened. Some guy, a young man who was at the Dallas Makerspace, went to auctions and he picked up about 6 of these milling machines and 6 of the lathes that they're all nice and in containment boxes and everything.
Enclosures.
Yeah, they were from like trade schools. Okay, they were being used for that. Then he didn't know how to make the control box work. So he didn't know if it was going to ever work out, so he sold it to me at a really reasonable price. And after I did some web searching and doing what I found out I got the control box to work. And I happened to have one ancient, probably Win 95 type machine that would run Linux CNC. So it just, everything fell right. So it works real nice. It's just, if anything ever breaks on it, it's going to mean I'm going to be like where Ray is. I'm going to have to figure out how to use it in Gurble. It's not hard. But it's, well, yeah, when I say that it's not hard, it's hard. But you know what I mean. It's not undoable. You can do it. But as long as this setup will work, I'll use it. And I've made some things with it. But the Shoreline is a little bit smaller than if I were going to buy myself. If I had no mill, I probably wouldn't buy a Shoreline because it's just a little too small. But this
It has all those accessories and everything.
yeah, but the neat thing was this was a CNC machine because that's what they were using to teach people. So I actually have a CNC milling machine, which is really cool,
So how big is the bed side?
I'm trying to think. Let's see. Let me see.
It's in a box, right?
Yeah, but I think the Y is, I want to say, is about 12 to 14 inches, and the X is probably about 5 to 7 inches.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's
So-
small, but it's the way I think it is.
Yeah,
and
so
it's a
so
little pricey.
if you're going to route plates, it's not. I don't. If you were making like what Ray, it would make what Ray was making. I could make that. All right, but if I wanted to route, say, a plate that was this big, yeah, I couldn't do that. That's really a router problem, not a well, if you have a big enough mill, it's a milling problem, but in most people it would be a router problem.
Well, Doug, I kind of went through the same process and I kind of determined that for what I wanted to do, the Shoreline seemed a bit small. I just stuck a link to what's more or less my, although looking at it, mine's a little nicer than this, but it's just slightly larger, but all manual.
Yeah.
I
Well,
will say,
there's some nice manual mills.
Ray has a Bridgeport, and
Yeah.
anybody that's ever spent any time on what I'd call a real mill, you get real used to it.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
I think that's one. You're right, and I think that's why this one I find just not only a little small but a lot limiting. But, hey, we don't make big parts, generally speaking. So it could do a lot more than I'm doing with it.
Right.
I mean, the limitation isn't the machine, the limitation is me. Anyway, so who's going to go next?
Well,
Oh, okay, Ted.
I
I got some stuff. All right. So I was last week we were talking about side-mounted rangefinders or sonar on
Yeah.
a robot, and I was kind of thinking about what David said, where you want it pointing at an angle forward to follow a wall, and that reminded me of a video I had taken of some experimenting I did with that several years ago.
Okay.
So I'm going to bring that up and kind of point out a few things. Let's see. Present. Let's see. Maybe a window here. We'll do that. All right. So, you should be able to see the blue box at the top is my rangefinder, and it's pointed out at roughly a 45-degree angle, and so then it's going to follow my garage around a couple sides. So it goes forward, and then it starts, and the way it works is it tries to keep a consistent distance, and as soon as it goes past the end of the wall, it'll turn to the left because it's the range shot way out, and then it gets back to where it wants to be, and it does a pretty good job of just falling parallel to the wall there. So I was surprised at how well that actually worked. It was real simple programming, but it's a pretty good rangefinder too, so that helped. I think it's a LiDAR light is what it is.
Okay.
But yeah, and I didn't really program anything other than to have it turn left or right to try to hold a consistent distance. And the only thing I thought about thinking about this whole experiment is if I had two of the range-finders, then I could use some triangle math and figure out exactly how far I was from the wall and what angle I was following it at. So that would be the only reason I could see to have another rangefinder pointed either kind of straight out the side of the robot or backwards, is just to have two measurements so you could figure out where the wall is and exactly how far you are from it. But for just following a wall, I think, like David said, having it facing an angle forward works quite well.
Yeah, the real trick is the inside corners, isn't it?
Yeah, because and for that you pretty much have to have one facing directly forward so you can see that corner coming up and turn before you hit it.
Yeah. Okay, Dave.
Or alternately, that could be one of a suite of sensors. If you have other avoidance sensors already operating, then they'll take over when you try to run into something. So you don't have to. I would offer two minor observations. One is that on the generally to try to follow the wall you have to use a different turning radius than when you hit a corner, because when you hit a corner you want to turn real sharply, and the rest of the time you want to turn kind of gently. And that's actually pretty easy to determine, because all of a sudden the rangefinder says, instead of the wall being 4 to 6 feet away, it's 40 feet away. And you go, okay, well, there's no wall there. There are some other subtleties. That algorithm can get trapped. If, for example, let's say you put a nice big box out in the yard, and then you walk along beside the robot, making it think your legs are the wall, and lead it out to that object, well, it'll get trapped just circling around and around and around. However, if you have odometry or an IMU, you can write a little watchdog that catches that phenomenon. I have one that says I've lost the wall. It says if you go through more than 180 degrees, you probably lost the wall, and all you have to do is don't turn as sharp. So your angle widens out, and eventually you'll run back into the wall. But anyway, that's an interesting trap to pose for it. One of the videos I showed in my office, I had a chair set up where it would get caught in that. I can show it some other time. And then the last one was, what was the last one? Oh, that seems to work just fine outdoors in bright sunlight.
That's
So
that's the little LiDAR light by who
Garmin.
who?
Garmin.
Oh, okay. Do you remember
Hey,
which?
it used to
Do
be
you remember
Tags
which? Do you
manufactured.
remember which version you have? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
2.
Okay. Okay.
It used to be made by, I think it was LiDAR Light was the company, but
Yeah.
then Garmin bought them.
Yeah. So is yours actually labeled Garmin? Garland?
Yeah, mine actually is Garmin.
I think that might be a 3 then.
Okay, maybe it's a 3, yeah. Well, I have a couple of them.
Price up.
Yeah.
I think I probably have 1, 2, and 3.
I think I do too. That's what I'm saying.
I'll make
The one was always a little.
make one other observation, Ted, which is that of course, another reason for having a second sensor is to have it pointed the other direction so you can follow a wall on either side. Of course, you could do that with one if you had some sort of mechanism to change which size, because you're really only using one at a time. But you can kind of cheat to get what you're doing, what you're after in terms of the measurement. And that is, or at least the way I do it on a couple of my robots, is that when you actually are parallel to the wall, you know that you're parallel to the wall for 2 reasons. And the first is that you're at the distance you told it to run at. And the second one is that you maintain that distance for a while. So if you can satisfy both of those, then it's just an equation. Actually, it's not even an equation, because you know in advance what the distance is.
Yeah.
So you can just take a right triangle to the wall and know the distance to the wall. So as I say, the way you're getting that extra information is by time. You say, well, I've been running parallel to the wall for X number of samples now, so I'm gonna vote that I am parallel. Otherwise, as you drive around, when that beam hits things, it'll say, I'm parallel, no, yes, no, yes, no. That's why it's good to have that other set of sensors.
Hey Ted.
And the last
ahead.
thing for wall following, if you actually are using the full suite of sensors, it's useful for the other sensors to know that you're wall following. So you have some, way to broadcast the fact that I'm wall following, and that changes what center detects do. Well, normally, whatever the sensor, sonar, IR, whatever, say if I see something on the right, I turn left. If I see something on the left, I turn right. If I see something in the middle, it's more problematic. What should I do? Maybe I use history, and so forth. But if you're wall following, if you see something in the middle, you should always turn away from the wall. So it actually alters the behavior of those other sensors, saying what you do on a center detect changes depending on whether or not you're wall following.
Good point. Ted, on that video, did I see it, was the LiDAR light actually picking up the flowers on the side and staying a little further away from the wall? Or was it still, or was it still, or yeah, there was something there, and I was wondering.
Let me show that again. And
Landscaping.
we'll see if it,
Looks like it did, yeah.
well, yeah, it was kind of weaving right there as it got to the corner.
Yeah, but you have that little.
Yeah,
mold
I was
there.
more further
Or-
along, further once you get around the corner.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Now you
So-
see you got a nice wall there,
Yeah,
and then when you come around this corner,
yeah.
you got a flower thing, yet it stays pretty much in the middle of the. So it looked to me like it's detecting the flowers.
Yeah, maybe it could be because it was further away from the wall once
yeah.
it got around that corner.
Okay.
Um,
The reason why I say that is because a lot of our Robo-Columbus obstacles are not hard obstacles. You could run into a tree, but you might be running through a bush that has a lot of kind of weirdness to it.
That's a good point, Doug. We were just talking last week about the cheaper sonars not being able to see foliage.
Yeah.
And if this can see it, that's a huge plus. I think
yeah, and you notice I built a little enclosure around the LiDAR light.
Yeah.
And part of that was just to protect it from when it crashed and rolled over or something.
Yeah.
And the other part was to kind of be a sunshade. And having that sunshade on there actually seemed to help in bright sunlight.
That's good news. Did you
So
pay?
is it actually mounted there on a servo?
It is on a servo. I was using it to test different configurations, and for that I just set it at an angle, and it's not actually swiveling. It's just I have the servo set at that 45-degree angle.
But if you wanted to say, now I'd like to follow a right wall, you could just swivel the servo?
Yes, I could. Yeah.
So you don't need 2 seasons.
Nope. It's always nice to have more, because that way you can, I figured if I had 2 of them, I could check to see if there was a wall on the other side, at the same time, and
Shoot the
Center up.
gaps.
yeah, center it.
Ted, are you averaging readings? Because I would think when you hit those taller grasses or whatever landscaping that is, you'd see like stuff all over the place because,
Yeah, it seems like it should, well, and it does kind of bounce around there. But no, I wasn't doing anything sophisticated at all. I was just getting the reading and turning left or right, depending on if it was further or closer than what I had it set for.
And how often did you do that?
Oh, I don't remember. This was a few years back. It was probably somewhere around 10 times a second.
Do you think that's the update rate of the LiDAR?
Yeah, do you remember, Doug, what the rate of that LiDAR
I want to
is?
say it was 30 times a second. I think it's more than 10. I'm pretty sure. But
Yeah,
that's
I
something
was
we could look up. Yeah.
I was doing it whatever the rate of the LiDAR was.
Yeah.
Is that like a LiDAR Light V3 or something?
Yeah, I don't remember what version it was. I think I have all 3 at this point.
Was it $129?
you can tell by the price, yeah.
Don't remember. Something like that.
100, 130, 150.
Yeah, I believe all 3 versions were about that price. When it first came out, it was a game changer. But they had the very first version. The big problem they had was the I2C they didn't do a good job in their I2C communication. It worked most of the time, but then it would just flake out a little bit. And
Yeah, I remember I had to put in a capacitor and a resistor into the power supply right next to it to keep the power from causing problems.
Yeah, and they fixed that in the version 2, or supposedly, and then Garmin bought it, and they came out with a repackaged version 2, and then they came out with a 3, and I think now there's even a 4, but it looks different. The other ones all look like binoculars, and the newest one doesn't look like binoculars, I believe. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that's a gold star for me. I see it. Ted gets
that
it.
was a video from 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
so
it's
I
new
don't know
to
if
us.
that counts.
It's new to us.
Okay.
Now wait a minute. If we're allowing new to us, I gotta go.
No, let me.
That'll be
Hey,
easy.
hey, David, you've shown us everything. We don't. There's
full
no
story.
way. There's no way that you haven't shown us something. I don't know.
If only that were true.
You could probably show us some of the outtakes. I know everybody has. Oh, it's gonna work. I'm gonna go take a picture of it. That's like the kiss of doom. It just. It doesn't work.
So Really, he can do it. Come on, roll over, roll over. No,
Yeah.
he was doing it just before you got here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, but no, if you know, I think this was kind of cool because it's a sensor we haven't seen. I mean, we have them, but we haven't seen them doing wall following. You know, so that's good, Ted. Anybody else got anything? Pat, you look like
I have one more question for Ted.
okay.
What kind of range were you getting outdoors?
I wasn't getting as far as the specifications. I think I was able to get around 20 feet though.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I tried mine like perpendicular against looking at a brick wall, and I thought, okay, brick is never going to be a good material because it's got little facets and crystals in it, and stuff's going to be shooting off in all directions, and same thing when it hits a mortar joint, it's got sand in it. But it actually did work good in. I think the range on those were 40 meters, so roughly 120 feet.
Yeah.
And I was testing it at less than that, maybe, let's see, maybe 50 feet or so max. And
Really?
It worked surprisingly well. Bright sunlight. And, couldn't complain about it at all. It was.
Yeah, and I should say I never really tested it over 20 feet. So.
Yeah. The reason why I don't think got put into, because most of them are like Ted. Oh, I wish I had two. Well, at $130 or $140, it was just a little pricey to have two, and that I think that's what really hurt it a little bit. Now they have those Chinese ones that'll go out to 12 meters and seem to be pretty honest about their specs, and they cost $25. So that's things have changed. But it used a real laser, if I remember right, Ted.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah, they used a real laser in that one, I believe.
I've got it up in front of me, and it has a warning sticker on it.
Yeah.
Class 1 laser, classified, complies with US FDA, blah blah blah.
Now, I will say when when they first came out, they had done if I remember right, they did a Kickstarter, and they played around with where you could buy it with the laser in longer specs, or you could buy it with a LED and it was shorter specs. But that didn't even survive after version 1. So if I remember right. Yeah. Okay, Pat, you got anything? You're looking so intent, you're staring into that screen like. I was wondering.
Just old eyes trying to look at small print. So, I just got home and my docking station from my work laptop wasn't coming up, so
Yeah.
I rebooted that. No, but I've been listening intent on the LiDAR, and I had a question for you, Ted. Maybe if you've got one. Would you be interested in doing a test on running parallel to a chain link fence?
Oh, that's a good challenge.
Yeah, I think I could try that.
I'm just curious to see, look, with your arrangement that you had there, going through the grass, are you able to run parallel to a fence with the LiDAR?
Yeah, I'm not sure that vehicle would run on grass very well,
Okay.
but
We'll find a fence next to a sidewalk.
Hey,
Yeah.
Pat, I don't know if anybody got back with you on that, but I think you had left a meeting last week, and John, is it Gutierrez?
John Gauthier?
Gutierrez?
John Spider Robot.
Yeah, that guy. He did an open CV demonstration of with pictures of a chain link fence to try to recognize that diamond pattern, and it seemed like it worked. I don't know. Doug, did you see that?
Yeah, if I remember right, he said there were, okay, so what he was doing, he had a license plate recognition program that he was using. You might remember that. Okay, he was using it from his mailbox, and he basically just changed the training images, okay, or just the images. I don't even think he changed. He just showed it images, and it was able to take and put it. It draws like boxes around all of the diamond shaped, and he did get, you know, a very good representation in most of them, but he did show an acute angle shot where it was distorted enough that he said, nah, it probably wouldn't work.
And closer. So
Yeah, it was closer, but
the curves of the individual wires, and
But
Yeah.
it was no longer, a box or parallel.
but then again, remember now, he just showed what I would consider feasibility because he didn't even change his program. So he wasn't doing any additional logic or anything like that. So there might have been a way of saying, okay, if I pick up boxes, rectangular boxes, no matter the angle or as long as they, were all the same, multiple copies of the same, that I would call that a fence. And I mean, what I'm saying is, he made a really good demonstration of the start of the problem. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I've been watching for the video to come out.
It's out. It's out.
It is out?
Unless I forgot to hit publish again.
I know I looked a couple days ago and I didn't see it.
But basically, what he was doing is he's looking for rectangles, actually parallelograms. And so without really changing the code or anything, it's all OpenCV. And basically he made a grayscale image and he ran a Gaussian filter over it, which kind of threw all the background out of focus. So it actually
blur the whole image.
And that worked. And then he looked for the rectangles, and when he was square onto the fence, it picked him out real well. His algorithm outlined them in green if it was high confidence and in blue if it was low confidence. So there'd be some green and blue mixed in there, but it saw a bunch of them. The more and more acute the angle and the closer he got to the fence, that algorithm started to fail. But, if you look at a chain link fence, those things are actually kind of spirals. Yeah. So when you get in on it close, there are no rectangles to recognize.
No, and that was my other concern. When you're driving, essentially, as you're getting parallel to it, you're not looking at rectangles. You're looking, like you say, a vertical spiral.
But it was pretty impressive, considering he just kind of kicked it out while we were talking.
Okay.
Carl, your mic's off.
It's published, Pat.
Okay, I'll watch it this week.
Okay.
Yeah, let's keep in mind that his algorithm was, after all, designed to find license plate outlines on cars. Yeah. And it just so happened that he happened to be looking for a pair of adjoining parallel lines, and that happened to detect chain link fences pretty well.
Yeah.
And he said it wouldn't work. And we're thinking, dude, in the last hour, you've just shown that it can work under certain without tweaking.
Yeah.
Might well be worth pursuing.
Yeah.
Dial it in for the problem that's on hand.
Yeah, it would seem to me that if he was working on the front end of the problem a little more with CV, so that, definition of a rectangle could be kind of blurred up a little bit, because he could be looking at line intersections. Do I see a periodic array of line intersections? Okay, that might be an example that he could have looked at that might have picked it up better. All right.
Yeah, like vertical line segments are,
well, no, don't even worry about that. What you're really looking for is like a repetitive pattern.
In that circumstance, false positives are really not that big a problem. That is to say, you're not gonna have it return a lot of times where it says there's a chain link fence here when there wasn't, when it tries to avoid something. And on the other hand, anything at all it sees, you probably should avoid.
Yeah, exactly. If it spots a bush as a chain link fence,
yeah, that's fine.
Where's the harm?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Unless you're trying to race through the fence.
So I think that would be, and I believe, if I recall, he actually shared a few screens of the code too, because if I remember right. So definitely go look it up. And anyway, you could ask John. He would, I'm sure he'd help you out a lot on that. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Good
Those
to
are,
know. I'll watch last week's video, which I haven't had a chance to watch yet.
yeah,
I had an early morning the next morning, and I had to be up 5:30 in the morning, and it was already I think it was almost 20 to 10 or something, so I got about it.
yeah.
Plus, you can watch it at double speed, which, as Ted has pointed out, we can't do here.
Yeah, yeah,
I do
Yeah.
that with some YouTube videos.
I do too.
I did that. I took a couple of courses on Udemy, and so you're listening to some guys drone on, and sometimes what they're saying isn't that interesting or relevant, and so 2 times the speed works great.
Yeah.
Just think there's probably somebody in the future watching this at 2 times the speed right now.
And they're saying they're droning on again.
Yeah. Not Pat with his chain link fence problem again.
Yeah,
I was
So
gonna
I'm
say
working
that.
on that one to try to get for the fall contest.
good.
So
Yeah.
the site I picked last year has some has quite a bit of chain link fence, and that's why finding the first target cone is across the grass. It's not a problem,
Yeah,
but then going through the playground and around a bunch of chain link fence is going to be the problem.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember your layout, and like I say, at least you got some coordinates that you can test against. Now I'm sure we'll change them up a little bit, but if you can do those, you can do anything, right?
Well, I have chain link fence in my backyard, which is nice, and I have a park in my backyard with long grass, with all sorts of stuff. So
Cool.
I've got a good test bed that's
Yeah, you're really
75
lucky.
feet out the backyard.
You're really lucky. I've got a small lawn in the back, surrounded by a fence and landscaping, and that's about it.
Oh, the park behind the house is about 150 feet wide by about 300 or so feet long.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit too small to do the Robo Columbus contest.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's why I was looking at the other site.
You probably
If I could do it here, I would set up Wi-Fi and just stream everything right from the backyard.
Yeah, yeah.
The contest parameters it's a little too small.
Yeah.
Well, in Texas, you can have your own patch of these super dense, prickly vines that you touch it and it gives you like a serious rash, poison ivy, poison oak kind of thing, So.
You got mosquitoes and black flies?
No black flies, but yeah, mosquitoes and.
We have plenty of mosquitoes, but thank God we don't have those flies. No
Yeah,
see
like
them.
in Colorado.
Well,
The other good thing about up here is we
Or
only
Maine.
have 2 seasons, really.
Hmm?
We have winter and construction.
Yeah, and that's like in Vermont. They have their 4 seasons are winter, fall, July, and spring. They got like 1 month of summer, and that's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, we have winter, still winter, summer, almost winter, and then back to winter.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. By the way, anybody giving the June contest any more thought? We've got Pat for sure on 4 squares. So that means we'll be running 4 squares, which is probably a good checkup for us. We haven't run 4 squares in a while, so that's probably a good, good checkup for us here in Dallas. Pat,
I had a question about that as well.
yeah,
So in the documentation for 4 squares, it lists the size of the cone pattern or the square pattern.
I think
8
it's,
feet, 13 feet.
yeah, it can be anywhere between there because you got to have flexibility.
So I can select that for whatever site I'm working on.
Nah, we'll tell you. No, you tell us how big your site is, okay?
Well, I'm trying to find an indoor site to do
Yeah,
it.
you tell us how big your site is. As long as it's 8 feet, go for it.
Well, I looked at 8 by 8, and if I cleared all the furniture out of the living room, maybe I'd be able to do it. And so I'm
Well,
looking
you can
for
always
an
move all the
outfit.
furniture to the middle of the room.
No, it's the couch and everything's too big.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm just saying is,
So you don't have a garage?
yeah, because you got to realize if you're doing it by 8 by
Yeah.
8, you're probably not. Your actual robot's probably going to run around 9 by 9.
Yeah, 10 by 10 roughly or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
something like that, depending on. And
So I'm looking at a French shop as well. I'm looking to try to get some Wi-Fi so I can do some streaming in the area or whatever. And
okay, that'd be great. And like I say, that's one contest. Anybody else got any other ones that they just got to have?
Well, I was thinking maybe can, or else the tabletop thing.
Okay. Well, I'd like instead of wait a minute. I can't even remember. What are they called? 6 cans, isn't that the
Yeah,
name?
it says can, whatever.
6 can as opposed
Yeah.
to can
The-
soccer, because
Right.
I think Jack would probably be interested in. I want to say he got 5 out of 6 last time, so he probably went, and it sounded to me like he was raring to go on another one. So we'll probably set that up and do 6 cans, not can.
Whatever it's called, yeah, you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
software-based.
6. Well, no, 6 can is the one where you got 6 cans and you go get them and you bring them back. That's
Yeah,
just a
but
time.
Okay,
Can
that-
is when there's two robots in there together, and
okay, yeah, but we did, yeah, basically the 2 robots, but we did, when we went and got the cans and took them back to the field, go by individual robot.
yeah. So
Or
doing it by
or
the
else
individual robots
Right,
allows us to have more runs.
right.
So, okay. So
Or else
that's
the tabletop version, effectively where you got cans randomly placed
I
on
haven't
the
s-
tabletop.
I haven't really heard anybody talk, John, about interest in
Well, either one.
tabletop.
To me, it's the same thing. The only difference, one's on a tabletop, and the other's a little more safer in the sense you're on the ground.
I like the one on the ground. I've done tabletop too, but so let's plan. There's two contests that we've got, and then I'd like to see Kareem's team go for that other, what is it, sample retrieval,
Right.
and maybe we'll all be inspired by Saturday's meeting, and might want to go. Might want to
Yes.
try to do sample retrieval also. So
Is that this Saturday?
no, June be the second week of June is kind of a tentative date. Second week of June. So
Contest, but Jesse
Contest.
Brockman will present this coming Saturday, right? Just
yeah,
14.
he's gonna show a project he did with the Oak D light. That's going to be really interesting, and I'm looking forward to that. And that's at 1:00.
That's 1:00 this Saturday.
Yeah, and which reminds me, Carl, I might not have put that in the. Let me see. I wouldn't be surprised.
The date, but not the time.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Shit.
And you might put the fact that it's Dallas time. So-
Okay, I got.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Right now, I'm gonna drop off for a few seconds and put the time in that.
It's in the meetup, and we got 5 or 6 outside of this group already
Yeah,
signed up via meetup. So
yeah.
So it's at 1?
1 p.m. Dallas, 1 p.m. Central,
Okay, this coming Saturday.
9th of April, 1300 Chicago time.
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah, I was thinking of videos that you could definitely speed up. So I've been trying to spare you guys of watching mill cutters slowly progress around a hole. It's like
You know,
you just want to.
there's the craziest stuff out there. I found, and I actually watched a video. It was like a 20 or 30-minute video the other day over lunch of somebody who was giving a 1970 Corvette a wash for the first time in 45 years. And all they did was wash the car. So who would watch a car wash? I don't know. So
Well, I watched a
Milling
30-minute
machine.
video of the history of gas cans once.
What have we
That's-
come to as a society?
That seems like useful information to me.
It was actually quite interesting, but
Well, Ted, I just watched the video on jerry cans, so I'm with you.
yeah, that's the jerry can video is the one I watched.
Oh, okay. Well, that's amazing. I watched it this week too.
Oh my
You know,
God, it's a
You know,
thing.
I'm feeling bad about this watching stuff a little bit. I'm a little sensitive these days. I've got the Twitch streaming going on. You know, I feel a little sensitive. And one of the reasons I feel so sensitive is there's a channel out there that has. I go at 2 o'clock in the morning. There's 50 people watching this duck pond that has no ducks. And so I feel a little sensitive with this watching thing. So I figure I'm at least as interesting as a duck pond with no ducks. I would think that, you know.
Harold, if it will make you feel better, I'll start a channel that does nothing but like show paint drying and grass growing.
Paint drying, yeah. that's
You'll
another
probably
one.
beat
Yeah.
me, and you'll probably beat me.
I don't think so.
But I will say, Ray, that watching a mill cut a circle is more interesting than watching grass grow or paint dry. I will give you both.
Maybe just a little bit, yeah.
We could A/B test that, which is more interesting.
Yeah, yeah. See how quickly your audience nods off, you know. Or if it has
Well, look-
hypnotic qualities, you know, it's, like just watching the cutter go round and round.
This is one of those things from one of those cheap science fiction movies from the end of the last century, where the house doesn't have windows. It's got what we would call flat panel displays with a camera on the outside, but it doesn't have to be the camera on the outside of your house. It could be a camera anywhere in the world. So you could be in the middle of the jungle or on the North Pole. I actually think that would be pretty cool. So we're kind of there, right? So watching a duckless pond, that's no different than looking out in my backyard, really.
You know, thanks, man. Just really thankful. Also, Mr. Anderson, in some seriousness, I've been playing around with my robot here, and I finally just wired up some things, and I got what you're talking about, continuous servos. I think I'm going to be able to take advantage of that. If I put a really big dead spot around my forward and backward joystick that are going on, anything less than 50% of that forward or backward, I can just make it go a little bit, and things will creep, and that's cool. As soon as I pass, there's a tipping point. I'm not sure where that is at the moment. As soon as I pass the tipping point, then it's full on, just like you were saying, exactly what you're saying. I'm like, wow, another tip from Anderson that's panning out. This is fantastic. You know,
So can you program your joystick to do that for you?
I can't program my joystick to do that, but I have a joystick translation thing that I have to send all the stuff through, and I can certainly do that.
Cool.
Yeah, I wonder if the video thing is, it's genetic now. It's like early man sat there and watched the fire. It was ever changing, and it provided light and heat. So it's like, it's positive reinforcement.
Speaking of positive reinforcement, there was a thing that came up in one of these crazy feeds you watched at the airport, and it was explaining that like dogs came from wolves, right? I guess so. So in theory, they were saying that the dogs and wolves have similar facial muscles, but there are certain muscles that in the dog's eyes that are more developed than in wolves, and they're the ones that let the dogs react more in a human way. And the theory was that since humans and dogs started interacting more and more, that the dogs adapted in a way that was more pleasing to the humans by developing these muscles for their eyes.
So did we adapt to be more pleasing to dogs?
It's probably the other way around. They didn't have to adapt. We just threw all the ugly ones out of the cave.
I don't know. I've seen some pretty ugly dogs. They're as loved as everybody else, even the pretty dogs.
But I know what Carl's talking about, because dogs especially seem to have a wide range of facial expressions. Like,
wide range in the eyes, like in the photo of this article. I mean, they almost look like human eyes, right? And so we just maybe we're just vain, right? We're imposing our view on the
or projecting, but even if
Yeah.
that's the case, I mean, if it works, right?
Yeah.
Did anybody ever see it was a study that was done in Russia. They basically domesticated, I think they were just wild dogs, and they all had kind of the same black coat, not a lot of features in it. And just through, I guess, kind treatment, they started producing offspring that had more and more color in their coats. And they were basically more tame. So, in just over a few generations, you can do that with dogs, and it's surprising. That's a very short time, in evolution for that to happen. So that probably includes additional muscles in the dog's face, And
I was watching a PBS special some time ago, and they brought up this experiment that's been going over in Russia for since the 50s, and literally from every litter of puppy, they'll take the most aggressive litter of that and put them in one side and put them together, and they'll put the most docile in with somebody else, and same genetic lines. They look so incredibly different. It's amazing, just over a very short period of time.
Yep.
Well, and to Carl's point, because we humans, when we're talking, we sort of have a secondary out-of-band communication channel that's our gestures and our facial expressions, and it can totally change the meaning of what you're saying. So we may be imbuing that to the dogs, and it's not really true, but for us, it is very true. So if you think of a good example, somebody said, he called me a jerk, and I said, well, you are a jerk sometimes. And you see, narrowing of the eyes, the clenching of the jaw, very different than if I said, well, you are a jerk sometimes. For the second one, it's sympathetic. The listener's likely to say, yeah, I'm working on it, But I totally changed the focus of the meaning by just small gestures. And people who talk well with their hands, and some don't, they just make the same gestures over and over. But that's a third channel of communication. If I said, I've used this example before, I found this red object in my backyard. By doing this with my hands, I show you about how big it is and sort of how heavy it was. About the size of a bowling ball, kind of a red bowling ball kind of thing. So there's actually these multiple channels that don't work at all, for example, on the telephone, where it's so easy to be misunderstood and where all that extra information is gone.
Same things with emails, and slight word changes in the email, and you can have somebody really upset with you, or somebody who's okay with you.
Hence, don't ever try to do anything important by email.
Yeah.
Dave, there is the other extreme. A lot of my mother's side of the family were Italian, and they had all kinds, their hands were like always waving, and that's, I don't know if that was useful or not, it just, after a while, it just looks like a lot of hand waving,
We might have to put the Italians in their own separate bracket.
Yeah, it's a fine art for the Italians, I think.
That's my father-in-law, yes.
So, my sister went to Europe some years ago, and I gave her a little funny book that was insults in 5 different languages. And the funniest thing about it was, in each language, you'd have this insult, and then you'd get over to Italian, and the insult would be like, vile, evil-smelling dog. It would be one word in Italian. All the insults.
Yeah, there you go. Eskimos with, snow.
Man, that's funny.
18 words to describe snow.
I thought, Mr. Anderson, I thought you were going to say I gave her this book in 5 languages, and she already knew them all.
Or gestures, it's like, that means, I hope the dogs eat your dead body, in Italian. So, or that one, yeah. It's like, giving somebody the finger. So, There was also the evil eye thing, and there was a big thing about that, you know, superstitions. I think she gave you the evil eye.
Boy, I've gotten that a lot
The evil eye.
from her.
Yeah, it's almost comical, you know. It's like, God, am I related to these people?
Has anybody got any robots?
So in the meantime, I think
That-
I'll let
Oh,
show
Pat,
something.
Pat was showing some split screen things here a moment ago.
Yeah.
Dual
We
camera.
were chatting about the gestures and like Pat was telegraphing some.
It's a little stereo cam module I bought, and I'm trying to get it to work on a Raspberry Pi. It's USB, just a regular USB cable, and the driver isn't picking it up. So if I run cheese on the Raspberry Pi, shut that down, then I run VLC on the Raspberry Pi, it'll pick up the camera. But if I just try to import the camera picture into like OpenCV, it won't do it. But what's nice about the stereo camera is the image comes through as one image. So it's not a left and a right camera image. It's one camera image comprised of both halves.
Okay.
So when it takes a frame at a time with both halves and sends it out USB.
Pat, you said when you use VLC after using cheese that it worked.
Yes.
And when you're using VLC, are you going into media and saying I want a capture device, and the capture device is, you know, Dev Video 0 or whatever?
Yeah, I want to stream from Dev Video 0.
And you're sure Dev Video 0 is the camera?
Oh, I've tried all the Dev videos.
Okay.
So, I've and it seems like something in cheese gets part of it going because it doesn't work well in cheese. But then when I run VLC after it, it seems to get enough of it that it'll work.
You think it's initializing the camera or initializing the graphics processing on the computer?
I'm not sure. I haven't gotten that far into it, and there's relatively little that I'm finding online about troubleshooting USB camera not working.
That's true with all real problems.
So there's lots on Linux to do it, but they don't. The Raspberry Pi isn't running the exact same drivers, so it is running some video for Linux stuff, but not exclusively. I think there's a couple other drivers in the background there as well. So I'm just that's one of the things I'm working on, and the idea is that I'm not processing two cameras and two images. I'd only be processing one camera with a larger image.
The guys at work have this all sky camera that they set up recently up on the roof, and I looked at it and I thought it would be some sort of, you know, omni lens or looking into a, you know, hubcap or something. But actually it's made up of, looks like 8 or 9 cameras all pointed off at weird angles, and then a little Pi that stitches all those together into a single all sky image. So I'll have to talk to them in more detail and find out how it actually works. It looked pretty cool.
I know ArduCam has a module that'll do several cameras, 4 cameras or something at once.
4, yeah.
And I think you can run more than one of those on the Pi, but it does it by sequentially accessing every camera.
Well, they want what they call real time, but I think for them real time means, you know, within the next minute. I think they do a lot of processing. It's not what, you know, within the next minute's plenty of time to run your robot off the cliff.
Yeah, exactly. It's you know, if we can get to 10 frames a second or better on a Raspberry Pi, then I think we're getting close to find an orange traffic cone.
Has anybody run into the issue with Raspberry Pi that on the newest version, Bullseye, that they have dropped support of the camera, the traditional camera? I think they were called Raspberry Cam and Raspberry Steel, and they're now using lib image. Has anybody run into that yet?
I've heard that they've done it, and I haven't tested. I wanted to test the Raspberry Pi with Bullseye to see if it would grab this camera.
Mm-hmm.
But it's my understanding is there's a wholesale change.
Yep.
But the libc image or whatever it was,
Yeah.
I don't think is complete yet for the Raspberry Pi on Bullseye.
Yeah, but they don't have. If you use, I don't know about. Is that camera that's using USB, right? So it's not using a.
Yes.
Okay, so it probably wouldn't be effective. But I know that the Raspberry doesn't have the old traditional camera support. You can.
On the
it's not active.
CSIS port or whatever.
Yeah. If you use, it has lib. I think it's called lib camera. Okay. It might be lib image. I don't remember. But yeah, it's lib camera. The new stuff is called lib camera, and the old stuff was. And you have a set of C applications and stuff that, so you can do a lot of what you could first do on the Raspberry, but it doesn't have wrappers around the Python yet. And supposedly, though, you can access the C API, C++ API in while you're writing the camera, and there's a couple of examples out there of how to do that. But I was wondering if anybody had run into that yet, because since I'm trying to keep current, I'm trying to go to the lib camera stuff, and been struggling a little bit, and I was just wondering if anybody had run into it. And okay, all right.
Doug, didn't that older camera use a special interface on the Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, it's still there. I mean, this
The
new,
interface is there.
what they've done is, the old libraries were Broadcom specific. There was a lot of proprietary stuff that they couldn't publish or change. Okay, that was a problem. So they're trying to go to more open source so that they can add a new type of camera to it really easy. And that's supposed to be more open source, easier adoption of additional camera types. So, but I don't know. It's not, like I say, I've seen some people who have done Python wrappers. I didn't try them, but they're on GitHub type things. And there's also some examples of the C code being used. But like Pat mentioned, it's not totally ready for prime time yet, I don't think. And you can activate the legacy stuff still, but you have to do it if you're using Bullseye. If you're using, I think it's called Jesse. Hold on a second. Buster, yeah. If you're using Buster, then you can use the old techniques without any problem. So just something to know, that if you did I guess it's a sudo app get upgrade, you get I think you get upgraded to the newest version, or if you're just writing a new card, you might run into having to do something if you're trying to get camera support. And so I just wondered if anybody had run into that yet. Okay.
Hey Pat, this was one of the dual cameras that you could use with the SciP MaxPi stuff. It says it's a binocular camera, but it's like a 2-to-1 camera multiplexer. So you can look at one side or the other, but not both. It doesn't do the split image. And
yeah, so you saw that when I was presenting in my window, it's a split image, and that appears as one camera.
Right, one frame, yeah. This one did not do that, even though it said it was a binocular camera. And there's, I think, like 14, they're probably pretty hard to see, but this line is like 14 2-to-1 multiplexers for the signals that go to both cameras. And you can pretty much on the fly switch back and forth to which signals you're looking at, left side or right side. But it's, to me, binoculars says it's by two, you're seeing two images. Not the case with this thing. So you could do, and I thought, okay, well, in that mode, I could use it for distance sensing, like if I, detect some, even just like a blob centroid, the blob centroid one camera and the blob centroid in the other camera. If you know the relative size of the blob, at a certain distance, then you can figure out, okay, they're this far apart, so many pixels, then it's so far away from the plane of the cameras. But didn't really play around with it that much. And it's only for, that format. It's got its own ribbon cable that goes with the SciPede Max stuff, and that's not compatible with anything Raspberry Pi. So it's pretty much for the Max Pi stuff. But
Yeah, so this one was, I don't know, it was about $100 and Canadian, so whatever, $80 US. And it was USB, and it was a true stereo image. So that's one of the things that attracted me to it, that both frames would be captured at the exact same time. The left and the right frame amalgamated into one image and shipped off to the camera when you do a capture. But the problem I'm having is right now is the drivers. So I'm on Buster and trying to get it to work, but so far no workaround. But it seems that it's strange that if I fire up Cheese with the camera, shut it down, then if I fire up VLC, then I get the camera image.
Yep. Yeah, what was kind of neat about that is there were 3 different cameras that you could replace, the 2 that it came with, and one of them had a wide-angle lens on it, and but another one was an autofocus, and they're all very cheap. I think that board was, I don't know, around $15 or something, and I waited forever for the first one to come, and had shipping insurance on it, and it, the number of days that I was supposed to get it in came and went. So I said, okay, Banggood, you owe me another one. Like the next day, that first one shows up in the mail, so I got 2 for 1. So
I'm not having good luck with. I've been ordering from AliExpress, and the last 3 things I ordered have gone over 2 months, and I've just applied for refunds for everything.
Oh, really?
It says it's been in Canada since February 14th.
Oh.
Hey, we're approaching April 14th here, so apparently it cleared customs and whatever, but are they giving you true info? I don't know.
Yeah, there is another cargo ship stuck in I guess it's Baltimore or near Baltimore. It's a huge, cargo ship. I think it might be the biggest cargo ship in the world, and it ran aground. I guess it got just too close to the edge of the channel, so now they're having to pick off individual containers off the thing to, basically get it up a little higher in the water so they can actually move it. But
so they're taking the container and dumping it in the water, and
actually one of the videos looked like they were trying to pick one off, and it looked like this thing went in the water and then came back out of the water and then went onto a barge, and you say, oh man.
That's yours.
Yeah, but whatever's in that container is ruined. So you'd think they would have thought about that. It's like, okay, this container weighs way too much. But,
That you laugh, but there's a guy I know that worked for Traxxas here in Dallas, and they have all their stuff manufactured and shipped in big container ships. He told me that if you pay extra, you can get your container basically stacked on the top, so it gets unloaded first. But the problem with that is if they run into rough seas, those are the ones that get thrown over.
That's the first one going in, right?
I heard it's not uncommon for them to lose 10 or 20 containers off a ship on the trip.
Well, when they have like thousands of those containers on it, it's just
I don't know if it's the same, if you've ever seen near the ports, but like here in Toronto, when you go south into Toronto, they have thousands of these containers in stockyards that are waiting to go back to China, but Canada doesn't sell enough to, send them to China.
Huh.
So they're sitting waiting empty for a return trip.
So maybe
And
that's why
I
the
hear
great-
now the Chinese are getting upset because, or they're saying, well, hey, we need some containers back.
Yeah, everybody's finding uses for containers, for storage, for homes, for.
I know here they're worth about $2,000 delivered.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
Well, I was behind one of them on the road today, and while I was sitting at the light, I read the text on the back of them, having nothing else to read, and it said the tare weight was 3,000 pounds. No, 8,000 pounds. 3 tons, more than 3 tons.
Empty.
Yeah. So $2,000 delivered sounds like a bargain for anything to place that much.
Yeah.
What's a ton of steel worth? $200, $400?
Not enough to the Chinese, I guess. They, make thousands of those in a year and don't get them back, I guess.
Yeah. So I've been, I don't know, dismayed. I have some pulleys sitting waiting to go on the robot to reduce the gear ratio some more. No belts. The belts are stuck in transit somewhere. And I forget what else I ordered. A motor driver, I think, as well, just to have a spare. And I think I've ordered 3 motor drivers to have spares. And after like 6 weeks, I get an email from them, order canceled.
Ooh.
So obviously they sit on your money for 6 weeks. It takes another 2 weeks for AliExpress to resolve the issue and refund your money. So they've got your money by the end of it for 2 months.
I have something I wanted to bring up in case people this wouldn't matter for people that aren't in the Dallas area, but Jim, do many of you people remember Jim Merkel?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a member of the Dallas Makerspace, and you all know Doug. What's his name?
Ames.
Yeah, Doug Ames.
Yeah.
Okay, so Doug Ames and Jim Merkel are putting together a class on arm stuff. It's a couple of things about it that might be of interest. For, like I said again, for local people, is that I've lost my. Is that
Yeah, they're doing it in the whatever
the
it's called,
lab,
or-
the Maker Lab in Richardson. So if I can find where, I've got too many windows open and I can't find.
I've got it here, Doug.
Okay.
Tuesday, April 19th from 7 to 9 p.m. Getting started with STM32, free and open to the public. There's a link.
Can you
if
put
you're-
Can you put the link in the chat just for in
let
case
me see.
anybody's interested?
Yeah, I emailed back that fellow said I've already got something else I've got to do on that night, so I can't be there.
Yeah.
Or I said if you got extra boards where you've not already allocated them, I'll give you the $14, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and I'll suck up the cost of one of those boards if you have that.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you'll have this again when I can show up. So I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Doug, I put the link in.
Okay, thanks. Great. I'm just saying is, this might be if you've always wondered about the lab and its new location and its support that it's got from the city of Richardson, you just want to explore it, this might be a good time to kill two birds with one stone.
Where is it?
It's in downtown Richardson, I believe.
Downtown?
So, yeah. Well,
There's a
I
map
thought it was
with
an
a map
online
of
thing.
this.
well, I thought Pat. At first, I thought it was too, but it's not. Well, I don't say that. David, is it got an online component? Or
Didn't
It's got
say anything.
a Google Meet link.
yeah, but I don't think it's that. I think it's a meeting. It's a meeting at a small makerspace in Richardson, Texas, that just recently got a new location and a lot of money from the city to upgrade. So I don't really know what the lab is anymore. I knew what it used to be when it was in its old location in Plano. It was right next to one of the best pizza places that I've had in a long time. So I mean, it was a great place to go visit and eat pizza. But I haven't been in since they've been moved over there.
Doug, it doesn't say anything here about Zoom. It does say masks are not required.
Yeah, so I think I want to say it's an actual hands-on meeting, because I think
Yeah, it looks like it. I just opened it up as well. It looks like it's on site.
yeah. So sorry about that, Pat, but anyway, I just thought most of us know Doug Ellis or Doug Ames. I mean, and we know Jim Urkel. So we know these people. They're people we've known for years, and so just thought people might be interested in knowing about this class.
There was another guy whose name escapes me now. Kind of short, tall, did another presentation on
Doug-
ST microelectronics.
Doug Wheat.
Doug Wheat, that's right.
Dale Wheat.
Dale
Dale, sorry, Dale.
Yeah, in fact, I
Anyway.
wouldn't be surprised if Dale Wheat was involved in this somewhere.
Well, I believe when I just looked at the webpage that he looked like he signed up for it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of curious if it was going to be like maybe the same thing as what Dale did, or maybe it would build on what Dale did. Or...
I'm hoping that it would be, and this is, Dale was trying to get one of these things together, but I don't think he was ever happy with it. Because
I thought it was fine.
yeah, I mean it was fine, but he didn't ever seemed happy with what he was doing. Like he couldn't quite get the material he wanted to get across or something. But I enjoyed his class. So this might be something very similar. I know that at that time Dale was working with Doug, so maybe Doug and Jim got together, and this is what version 2. It looks like they're moving away. I don't think it's a blue pill or anything. I think it's a real nuclear board.
If you look at the link, they have a picture of a board. It looks like a standard Nucleo board.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that would be a little different because Dale was working with a blue pill, if I remember right.
That's right, yeah.
I believe it is a 103 variant, though.
Yeah. I wouldn't be
Yeah, it's
surprised.
The one with the most number of pins, I think. I want to say 64 pins or something.
Hmm. Yeah.
Looks like it's got 16 per, well, yeah, 16 per side.
Anyway. Be cool. So that was one thing I saw across the path today or this week. Let's see if there was anything else.
So in the meantime, while you're looking,
Yeah.
I have a treasure Harold. Do you ever print that robot Asses, or are you process?
No, it is on the list. It is on the list that I can only afford. This is time afford. Well, there's money for it too. 2 projects going on at the same time. So, so the robot my rover, I'm getting real close. In fact, in the last stream I put in the brains into the Raspberry Pi. Figured out a whole bunch of things. If anybody knows how to light UART number 5 on a Raspberry Pi, so I can use my GPS, so Ubuntu doesn't freak out because the GPS is tapping on the keyboard. It likes to stop the boot process. Thank you very much. I mean, I know I can disable it, but I don't want to.
Because I was going to say, if you hadn't print that,
I haven't printed that yet, but it's on the way. So, and the other project is I'm doing some stuff with Mr. Big Head, my little talking head thing, and I think I should be able to get that to a release state tomorrow night. And if that's the case, then that will become my second project.
okay.
On the thing.
Because After you get that finished, Prince, here's a more fancier version. of
Lovely. Thanks,
one
thanks,
thing.
John, for queuing me up.
Hey, well, this is interesting. I saw this today, and it had his arms and that, and it actually looked, and a face. So this could be for the other John with his eyes movement. So I noticed that. So yeah,
Oh, my word.
so where's the face?
How big is this thing? If we got a
It's I imagine. Well, there's a face in this
there's
thing.
a hand.
So,
I saw a
right,
hand.
there's a hand. And somewhere.
She looks kind of tough. I don't think I'd mess with her.
Yeah, I was going to say. Oh,
There's a face. I saw a face
Yeah.
jump through there.
Who's that MMA fighter? Rousey?
Yeah,
or,
there's the face. So I'm suspecting that's about, well, typically, printers are 8x8 ish. So I imagine that face
That
is like
looks
8.
crazy. Post that link in the chat. I need to go take care of the wife at the moment. She has a question about something or other, and I'll be back. I want to look at that.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
But
Thanks.
yeah, I thought you might find this interesting, or else John will, with his face for Halloween type thing. There's the link for that. So, and then the other thing I found, which is interesting, but from a different aspect. So let me click to that window. The other thing is this one, because this one actually looks like they did a pretty decent job of Bluetooth, infrared, and that. So it's pretty good, well distribution in this light. So it talks about the distance there. But it looks like it's very in depth, which is typically not, some of these articles, they aren't that in depth, but this one actually looks pretty good. Talks about the pin motor control library and that. So in the motor test, so yeah, so for somebody that wants to get interested into the code and that, this looks like a pretty good one. Infrared control and Bluetooth
She looks a little
control.
bit like Ronda Rousey, who is like one of the 10 best women MMers.
And they have a GitHub seemingly thing, so this would be another one I would recommend, especially where people are just get into that. I'll post that in the chat thing too, in case somebody. So yeah. So those are the two things I found that were of interest today, a little bit.
60 thing files for that one robot? Holy moly.
Oh, for the hand one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have the hand, the arm, the head. It's sort of, yeah.
Well, they printed it on an original Prusa Mini Plus, so, it's not that big of a build volume.
Okay, well, what's the original? I don't know what the original was. Probably 6x6 then?
Yeah, 8x8's pretty common, but the smaller ones I don't think would do 8x8.
Right, well,
Inches.
that's why I said the original was smaller, but I forget how smaller.
May have been 6x6.
That's what I'm thinking. Nowadays, 8x8 is pretty, standard. And they, of course, are making bigger nowadays, so.
Yeah, 8x8x8.
But yeah, I thought that was of interest, but yeah. Especially the head one. Because it looks like they did a pretty good joint for the hand where they basically use wire for the movement of the hand.
You could say it's Rhonda, and if you get too close to it, she gives you an MMA punch or something. Get away from me.
I don't see the thing put together anywhere in any of this.
No, I was hoping they had a video for it, but
I would say visit this. There's it looks like pimp.rocks. Let's see what that is.
Ray, so you're saying 8x8x8 is a standard 3D printer volume?
nowadays,
That's a common one. I mean, I think the purses, like an i3, that was it's like 200 by 200 by 200 millimeters. So it's an 8-inch by 8-inch by 8-inch cube, basically.
Yeah, if you go to pib.rocks, that's a real URL, and there's stuff there.
so do they have any video though?
They do have some. I'm looking.
Okay.
I'll have to mute this for a second.
8x8x8 is about the size of that object I found in my backyard.
That's right.
So it could have been the head. No.
So is there any video, Harold?
He's probably looking.
Yeah, I would think a great thing to.
There's an intro video, and I see the mini in there, but I don't see the robot video yet. It's just the dude talking about how cool it's going to be, and I'm like, well, that's fine, but if you built this thing, how about you show the thing, the cool thing? I don't care if it's half built.
Right, so he doesn't have to do putting it together.
It shows, you could, if it has somebody that's bothering it, you could do like the women do at bars, they pretend to pick their nose and eat it to, get rid of the guys, so you get little robot pickets.
I didn't know that.
No? Oh, yeah.
No, I've done that when the cop was staring at me.
Yeah, supposedly that's the, if you get one of those, then you know that,
Move along.
That's right. Nothing to see here, no interest.
There's some video of him printing some things, and he does show it printed out, sitting on a tabletop. Got a weird layout to all the stuff. Torso, head, neck, and arm. I think it only's got one arm.
Right. As far as I could tell, yeah, it's only one arm, but you could easily image it.
I just need one arm to pick your nose and eat it, so,
They're using the MG996R servos, standardized servo. I don't know. That arm's pretty. I was looking at the shoulder, and that is using just that one servo. That's a lot of. I know that servo can be pretty stout, but that seems to be a lot of mass to move around with just one servo.
But you say they don't actually have it assembled and working.
I see it assembled. I don't see it actually doing anything.
It's a sculpture, robot sculpture.
Yes. Let's see. Let me jump around a couple more places and see. Well, there's the neck. They're showing how to. Oh, and they're showing very, very pretty pictures. They look to be renderings about how you put the thing together.
This is the problem with all robot arms. And most of the ones that we have available today are powered by servos, and servos are just not ballsy enough to do it. We need some kind of maybe coreless motors with built-in planetary gear reduction. There's got to be some better way to do it because servos just can't. I
Well,
was watching this backhoe operator on my way to work, and just how amazingly powerful that thing is, even when it's all the way extended. And so maybe that's the trick. Maybe we're doing this all wrong. Maybe it should be done with hydraulics. You can build little bitty tiny hydraulics.
Well, they've got some. I've seen some pictures where you've got dual servos, like two of them right next to each other with a gearing thing on it. So maybe they're using that dualed up to help extra power or something. I don't know.
If so, that just makes the point, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. As cool as this thing looks, now that I look at it and see that I don't see real pictures of them doing things with it, I'm not so keen of jumping in on this thing.
Well, right. Well, I didn't say it was perfect.
I mean, no.
That's why I think the first one's better. I would go for the first one.
Oh, the first one looks simple enough and easy to put together, and the whole works, and it has a video of it actually standing up and moving a little bit. So, yeah, that does look cool.
But I did find, in the meantime, something for the other John Wayne. Guess if we see him next week or that, we need to show him this, or I'll show it here in case, he sees us later.
Did anybody see the special? It was on KERA. It was about two climbers that basically got stuck in a snowstorm and almost froze to death. Both of them had to have their feet amputated. And one of the guys became a professor at MIT, and he was working on replacement limbs that actually used nerve sensors, the remaining nerves to control the muscles, to control these sensors, or the legs, knee joints, ankle joints, and apparently they actually changed the way that they do amputations to accommodate these prosthetics. So muscles, that oppose each other could still do that. So because typically they haven't been doing that. They were saying that amputation surgery hasn't changed that much from the late 1800s basically.
But now that they can actually interface the muscles with electronics.
Yeah. So the one guy didn't have that, but the other guy actually had surgery done to change the way his leg stumps, the muscles they're basically wrapped around the end of the bone, and that's not what you want. You want the two muscles to still be able to act independently. And he was basically a full cyborg, part machine, part human, and he had tactile feedback to be able to control his prosthetics. Anyway, in the ankle one, they actually they had a brushless motor on a lead screw to get enough power, because basically your ankle is supporting your full body weight, because you're on one foot or the other as you walk, and it had several iterations over time of what that ankle joint prosthetic looked like. And I think the one guy actually, he wanted to be taller, so he made his leg joints whatever type he could make them. So he made himself a couple inches taller. So, but very interesting to see.
Yeah. Speaking of,
but that's a really good point, Ray, which is that the model that we have to go by, which is us, there's a tremendous amount of power and leverage and pressure on those joints. As you say, you can hold your body weight up on just an ankle. Mm-hmm. And I know that when I talked to you guys a few months ago about this kinesthesiologist at SMU that wants to measure forces, he said at one point that a ballerina up on point, so all her body weight's on the end of her toe about the size of a quarter, and that when she then leaps up in the air, the kind of forces we're like a baseball bat hitting a fastball, and the tons of pressure that goes down on your knees just on walking around every day.
Yeah, isn't it one time when the air industry first started doing it, like airplane flights and stuff, they prevented women from wearing certain kinds of high-heeled shoes because they were set so much pressure on there, they were literally poking through the floorboards of the metal, the aluminum they had built the plane with. I heard that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that.
I can believe it. Those stilettos, yeah.
Could be possible. You're right. There's a lot of pressure, yeah, on giving those spot. So here's another one. Okay, simpler. That could be for Halloween, or that. And that's why I said for John, you might. But this has the eye movement thing.
It's like it has a bunch of holes for eyelashes, maybe, or something there.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the typical, yes, 8x8 printer, by the way, or a little bigger, actually. Let's speed this up a little.
There you go. That's another one with paint drying, is watching a 3D printer print.
Yes. So, let's see. We'll move it to about there. Okay, you can see where actually they move. You see, they have a raw here on this one for movement.
Look, they're using ball joints. I had suggested that to John, but he was determined he wanted to make his own. But the helicopter guys have solved this problem elegantly.
Yeah,
Wouldn't those be eyeball joints?
Yes.
Yeah, you look at ball joints used on radio patrol. They've got hardly any backlash in them.
Yeah, and they make them all different sizes and weird angles and different lengths, and yeah, they solved that problem very elegant.
So yeah, we might want to forward this to the other John. But it looks like a pretty well built eye movement in that.
Pretty big eyeball.
So yeah, I thought that was a little interesting for, you know, a movement. A little more, actually, he has a video, so showing it's working, so.
So Carl, I got to ask you, your shoulder blade thing, how did that start out? I've got this, I went to the doctors today and gave me some muscle relaxers, but they don't do squat. I have this like pain in my shoulder blade that's like, you know. Oh, you're on mute.
Is that robotic shoulder?
You're muted, Carl.
Yeah.
You're not muted. You are muted.
There you
I
go.
was, now I'm not. So do you mean, how did it start out by what caused it, or how did it start out by what solved it?
Or, yeah, what caused it? Is it
Well,
bicycle riding?
No, what caused it was, I'll show you a photo. I was not being careful when I did something, and it was a not a hold my beer here, watch this kind of thing, but it was not far from that.
Were you cleaning out your parents' garage?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before, but there was this object, which is a 1940s vintage welder. Probably my dad thought it weighed 150, but I think it's 250 or 300. And he had welded these two little wheels on the back, and he wanted me to like a rollerboard and drag it around, because his great idea was to go put it in the back of a Tucson so we could take it to a metal scrapyard and get some cash. Well, as soon as I figured out how heavy it was when he was trying to do it, I thought I'd humor him and drag it out here and show him that this was just the silliest thing possible. But it wasn't. He had to get out jack stands, and he had this crazy idea, and it was just. So anyhow, what happened was, I finally convinced him we didn't do that. So we wound up anyhow. We wound up filling the car with other kinds of that for some vintage gear and some metal scraps. So we went to the first nice crisp bills for metal scrap. And I'm afraid that it also included some expensive trim strips that go on a certain vintage car I'm trying to restore. But
Oh no.
so that was about just under a year ago. So we went to there, we got back, and then there was all this junk spread out in the driveway. We were really tired by then. It was a humid, hot Pittsburgh day. So I got to what he said to do: grab it by the handle, tilt it back like a rollerboard, and drag it and drag it. Well, at one point, it went a little that way, and it jerked, and I was scooping it, and I instantly separated literally half of my rotator cuff tendons from the bone.
Ow. Ouch.
I knew immediately that something was wrong because it didn't work very right, and it was making funny sounds, and I knew it felt. So I went to the doctor when I got back a week later, and then So then the solution was, there's no therapy or anything to fix that. There was.
Cortisone.
No.
Surgery, right?
It was. I don't know how many. I had hope. So it was bicep tear, a bicep dislocation tendon, and then there was that were completely ripped from the bone. So there was a cut here where they cut off that tendon and just attached it in a new place because didn't need that tendon anymore, that part. And then it came in the back and the side, and he had 3 bone tunnels with 3 stitches each. So there was 9 sutures through the bone tunnel to reattach the tendon, and then an anchor. And it seems like there was another one somewhere else too. So they just stapled it, and then last summer was waiting for the tendon to reattach itself.
Carl, did you go do any therapy?
Oh yeah, hell yeah! So that was that thing. This event was May 14. Surgery was June 22. Therapy started last week in July and ended December 25th or 24th.
Wow, so like 5 months of therapy.
Yeah, and I should have in January, but I've
You
stopped.
should have said, "Dad, I'll just give you the cash."
Yeah.
There's a similar
Roll it to
story
the
like
end
that
of
with
the
this
driveway.
clown, but yeah, and then my brother. Okay, so the thing is that here we fast forward to February, and my brother brought a proper truck, and what did he do? But he made a ramp and a pulley. He turned it into a pulley, so he one-armed it up into the bed of his truck. It took like 5 minutes. No surgery, no emergency room visit. And there it is in the back of his truck. He didn't put googly eyes on it like he said he was gonna, but anyhow, it's out of my life.
Carl, one of my friends that worked out at the Super Collider back when there was such a thing, one of the engineers out there decided that he was going to buy a skateboard for 50 cents from another one of our colleagues. And he stood up on it in the parking lot within minutes of having bought it, fell and caught his thumb behind the bumper of his truck, and 4 or 5 surgeries, and actually a few years later. So watch out what you spend 25 cents for.
Yeah, that's probably the most expensive 50 cents in the history of 50 cents right there.
I'd rather go back to watching paint dry than that. See you, Pat.
See you guys.
I think I'm going to be gone too, guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Have a good night. We'll catch you Saturday.
Yep.
Jesse.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, Central Dallas, U.S. That place.
Okay. We'll see y'all.